What was your inspiration to, I guess, discover Islam and be so? I guess a separate question would be I just kind of be so engaged in trying to educate yourself on this stuff.
So it started because of hip hop. Man, one of my first memories was, or like that really sticks with me, is seeing Minister Farrakhan on Donahue.
Okay.
The first time. He was on there twice. It's masterful. And everybody should go on YouTube and watch both of those. It's one of the most, even just as an oratorical display, it's one of the most amazing things ever. But as a little kid, I was always really deeply troubled. Like, man, America is lying about black people. I didn't know the whole history. I didn't know why. But I'm like, and so seeing Farrakhan on TV with Phil Donahue, and like I look more like Donahue than I do Farrakhan.
Right.
And man, I'm just like, this is incredible. So that was my first time. But then hearing it in hip hop and things like that. And then when I was 13 years old, I went and saw KRS-One give a lecture, and he brought me on stage. I asked a question, he brought me on stage, and he told me I should read the autobiography of Malcolm X. And
I read that book when I was like 12, 13. Yeah.
Same. And then the movie came out. But like we grew up in hip hop.
Right.
So to us, Malcolm X is like the Jesus Christ of hip hop.
Yo, but then you start to like, you're like, yo, Malcolm X was like a player. The Detroit Red era of his life.
He was
like
he had a gangster period.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So the whole time I'm reading this book, I'm like, this is the most, like, yeah. So he's
such a great book.
He's dope.
Oh.
He was a street guy. He was whatever. And he's also like an urban guy and a city guy at the same time, and like he's everything. And so I'm like, I'm not allowed to be in this movement, but I'm just gonna imitate them. I believe in what they believe in. I'm gonna do what they do, even though I'm not allowed to join. So then Malcolm goes to Mecca, and he's like, oh, there are people here that in America would be called white, but they're not white. He's like, white is a mentality. Just like for years, they would say to black people, we are the so-called Negro. Just because everybody says that's what we are, we existed before anybody else. So like, what is this title now, Negro?
Yeah.
The same is true for European people. It's only been a couple hundred years that there was an idea of somebody called white. And that was a very specific branding thing that was done to try to unite all of the European peasants to stop fighting the landowners and the oppressors in Europe, and to be on the same team. That like, we're going to be on the same team. We're all going to be white. And trust me, you're part of it. You're at least you're not going to be at the bottom of the social order. And you know, so we're on hundreds of years of that lie. So the first thing was that Islam addressed that lie. Malcolm said, these people, they're not white in how they are. And he said, if white Americans would learn Islam, study Islam, it would help them become human again. And I was like, okay, that's all I've been waiting for.
Right.
Then I had to like learn and figure it out and find a community and blah, 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 blah. So it's been a journey like that ever since. And now my family, like we've lived in Istanbul, Turkey for the last 4 years. My wife's also a convert. And the more I learn, the more I love it.
So you're in Turkey?
I've been living in Istanbul 4 years. I do not live in this country.
How is it out there?
Dope. And difficult.
When
and
you
stressful.
take a flight home, or rather, when you
which
fly
one is
here-
home? Which home?
Okay, when you're flying out of Turkey, how many guys have the head wrap because they had their? I know so many of my,
they
get their hair done.
yeah,
It's insane.
Yeah.
They go out there, they get. I guess like I mean, obviously it's the world leader for scalp surgery or whatever. But my boy went out there. He's like, yo, they got the hotel on lock. It's like 5-star service. They take you to and from.
Yeah.
But I heard Turkey's beautiful.
Well, yeah. If you're in, it's like any other place. Like if you go to the tourist location, there's only tourists there.
I'm friend with a lot of Armenians, man. They got that, you know, that the Turkey versus Armenia thing is
in LA. It's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Specifically in LA. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
And so people ask me about that. And my critique has always been of groups that I'm in, places where I have influences, and where I pay my taxes. I'm not a Turk. I'm not a citizen of Turkey. I don't vote for I don't have any power in Turkey. My audience is not a Turkish audience. I don't have influence in Turkey, and I don't pay my taxes in Turkey. My influence, my taxes, and my voting are here. And so I am critical of groups that I'm in,
for sure,
and people that listen to me. So, you know,
what inspired you to go out there?
So my wife actually studied in Turkey for a summer.
Okay.
There's like these like intensives when you become a Muslim, you can go and spend a whole summer, and they just bombard you with learning. It's
Right.
more than you can possibly take in, but you get a lay of the land. And she came back and she was like, yo, okay, this is the specific type of practice that we're going to start doing going forward. And someday we're going to live in Istanbul. She's like, you need to live in Istanbul. And so she told me that like 10 years ago, and I was like, okay, like her instincts are undefeated. I know this, if she's serious about something, there's truth there. So I'm like, okay, all right. So I started visiting, and then during the pandemic, it's like, yeah, now might as well be the time.
That's dope, man. Yeah. Was it? I always feel like that's why I always tell people like I always will talk to like people who have only lived in one city or one area in their life. I'm like, sometimes you just gotta. Obviously, being in radio, I've lived all over the country, and I feel like just traveling in general, obviously being a touring artist, you get to have a lot of nuance and perspective because you've been all over the world, you know?
Yeah.
But a lot of people lack that because they just know where they're at. And it's so hard. It's easy to tell somebody to travel if they got a full-time job, you know, and they only have two weeks a year of vacation, you know, but
it's very difficult.
I just think it's so important, man, to get nuance and perspective of the world.
Well, especially if you're in the dominant group. And people in the dominant group don't realize they're in the dominant group. Like that's ultimately, you know, unless you grow up in hip hop and you're the only person that looks like you're in the room. And you're like, oh, this is actually the reality. I'm trying to see what's up with this.
For sure.
But for most people, if you're an American, even if you don't have money, even if you're like the world media is telling your story and projecting your culture. And you don't realize that unless you're not from that. And so... yeah, it's like it's very difficult to get, like we don't know ourselves until we know what the alternate version of us is. Like you can have a doctorate degree in the English language. Until you learn another language that's very different from English, you don't really know your language because you only know it as an insider. It's like if you go visit a culture and like they only know each other, you're like, oh, you guys do this differently. And they're like, no, what do you mean? Like this is what
is different. Yeah, no.
This is what everybody does.
Yes.
So for Americans, it's like, yeah, man. And it's fine, go to Europe. That's cool. But like, man, see what's up with Ethiopia. See what's up with the Gambia. See what's up with Lebanon. See what's up with, you know, Vietnam. And go away from...
Asia's crazy.
Go away from where the tourists are.
For sure.
Don't be in a tourist area. Go in a place that like, well, we don't speak the language. Yes, that's the point.
That's where you want to be.
We don't know anybody here. That's the point. And watch how beautiful people are to you. Wherever you go, like, man, people will help you. They will feed you. They will smile at you. They will welcome you. They will, wherever you go. And you just start really realizing like there is a common human thing.
There is.
That's what you get to when you start with you, but you got to know different types of humans to learn what's my culture, what's our thing, and then what part is the human thing. Because so much of what we talk about is just the American thing.
Yes, the American perspective.